I said, man, I'm here for a good time, not for a long time. That was kind of the main reason why I decided to go into commercial real estate. I don't want to have any regrets in 20 or 30 years going, man, I wish I would have gotten into commercial real estate. And so that led me into betting on myself, getting into commercial real estate, buying my first shopping center, buying my first hotel. If I didn't do those things, I would have never changed my life in the way I thought I would. The boutique hotels financially changed my life. I have so many priceless memories with my daughters and my wife going to my hotels, going to the beaches and experiencing things that I would have never experienced if I had just stayed a house flipper.
Welcome back to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Hale, and this is Point of Impact. Today, we've got an awesome guest for anyone who's interested in figuring out how to get unstuck, get through hardship, just trying to figure out how to get by despite being in, coming from challenging situations. There's no other example better that I've found than Matt Aitchison. Is gone from expulsion and federal charges to getting his degree. By 22, you were flipping 6-figure homes and then pivoting to commercial real estate, apartment buildings, retail, strip malls, and became a hotelier. In boutique hotels, and doing this with OPM, other people's money. And it's just an incredible example of the compound effect. By showing up and doing the work, and even though it might not seem like you're doing much in the moment, when you look back and see how far you've gone and the progress you've made, and how far you can go just by continuing to show up is pretty incredible. I call it Aaron's first law of kicking ass. Body in motion tends to stay in motion.
Yes.
Well, without further ado, today's guest, Matt Aitchison.
Thanks for having me on the show, brother.
Welcome to the show, Matt. This is a true joy, honor, because I feel like I know you. I've been listening to your podcast for quite a while now, Millionaire Mindset. You do 3 episodes weekly, which is pretty cool. And some of it is guests and guest lessons, guest topics, but then you also do more current event when it comes to real estate related topics. So I really appreciate that, because it's hard to find sometimes hard to understand sometimes, how does this affect me as an investor? But before we get into that, I'm so curious about the troubled times. So how about a little preamble, a little background on where you came from to where you are now?
Yeah, I think all, at certain times in our life hit a little bit of turbulence. I chose to walk down a path of turbulence probably longer than I needed to or should have been. I learned the hard way, but I've always been a believer that, you surround yourself with 9 people that are, smoking weed, drinking, fighting, stealing, doing dumb shit. You're probably going to become the 10th. And that's what led me into early challenges and troubles. And that got me expelled from high school. And then I got arrested in college for doing other stupid things. And I remember just kind of I call it the ocean moment. I think everybody kind of has an ocean moment in their life where you're really faced with a harsh reality, whatever it may be. I know you've been through hardships and challenges in your life, and you could have either laid down or you can lean in and, buckle down and do what you need to do based on what your goals are for yourself. And so when that ocean moment hit me in my life, in my, late teens, early 20s, it led me to the path that honestly changed and saved my life. I found my first mentor that was a small business owner and an entrepreneur. And that was kind of my first exposure to that. And that also taught me that when you surround yourself with, 9 other entrepreneurs, problem solvers, abundant thinkers, action takers, high integrity people, you're probably going to adopt similar mindsets, habits, and disciplines as those individuals. And that put me on my own entrepreneurial journey. And I moved back from UC Santa Barbara after graduating. I went to live with my parents for a little bit, broke, living at home, the traditional college student trying to figure out what their next life's, decisions are going to be. And it led me to finding, this was back in 2010. And this was post-financial crisis. There were foreclosures everywhere in California. And I remember seeing an ad on Craigslist, of all places, real estate mentor seeks real estate mentee. And little did I know that means I'm going to work you to death and not pay you a damn dollar. But that being said, I got exposed to real estate investment. And I was, helping this guy essentially acquire, project manage, and dispose of real estate assets. And he was, clipping 50, 60, 70, 100 grand a property. I was doing all the work. But again, I knew that this was an amazing stepping stone for me to get into the path that I wanted to be on. That led me to my first house. It was the cat lady house of the neighborhood in a rougher area of Sacramento. She had over 100 stray cats in her home. But I bought that house at 21 years old, still broke, living at home, never bought a property in my life. And I used 100% of other people's money to buy the property. I ended up netting $106,000 on that very first deal as a 21-year-old after paying off all of the investors who funded the deal for me. And that was really my light bulb moment that I was going to be a real estate investor going forward. And, that led me to building up my own flipping company. Quickly after that, I kind of learned that I need to figure out passive income and start to find a way to keep more of these properties. Quickly after that, I learned that, $200 a door on single family homes was probably not going to be the path to unlocking the financial freedom that I was hoping for, or at least I was going to need a lot of houses in order to do that. Mm-hmm. So that shifted my attention over to commercial real estate, which led me to buying my first neighborhood shopping center using 100% of other people's money. Then that led to me buying my first boutique hotel, then my second, my third. And kind of the story just continues on, right? Of trying to find those, stepping stones and failing forward moments to learn, grow, optimize, and, keep on the path of achieving what I wanted to achieve, but doing it in a way that was aligned with my values, the person that I've built myself up into and, wanted to continue to become. And I've never been the smartest, fastest, or strongest guy. I always knew that about myself, but I've always been an extremely hard worker. And I was just, tell people I'm dumb enough to believe in myself every day and smart enough to take action on my goals. And, a blind squirrel stumbles its way into an acorn every once in a while. And I just try and continue to put myself in those positions.
And you know what? You're so well spoken. Just listening to your YouTube videos and the podcast, you do a great job of explaining what's going on and what you're doing. So congratulations there. But I was just flashing back to my own college days when you were talking at the beginning, and there's some parallels there. I wasn't kicked out of high school. I was kicked out of, not kicked out. It was kind of a mutual thing in college. I was invited not to come back. But instead of going into real estate, I went into the military.
Yeah.
However, before that, you're in California, right?
That's right. Yeah. I'm in the suburbs of Sacramento area.
Yeah. My wife went to Santa Barbara. But,
okay. So she's a fellow gaucho as well.
But I decided, I'm from Ohio. I decided after leaving, getting kicked out of college the second time, that I would pack up all my worldly possessions, which is that empty cable spool, coffee table, and a couple milk cartons as the entertainment center. I don't know. And I picked it all up in my Chevy S10 pickup and did a road trip across the country. And even though it probably wasn't the wisest decision, why not roll up a couple pinners, a couple J's for the drive? And I made it the whole way happy. I even made it to Arizona, took a little southerly detour and drove across the northern mountains in Mexico. But then it was getting late in the evening and I reached Tijuana. And I thought, I don't want to be here at night by myself and turn north into San Diego. But I had just a couple, just like 3 joints or something, trying to cross back over. This will go down on your permanent record.
Yep.
Anyways, it wasn't a great start to my new beginning. My dad had to drive down from Laguna and bail me out from the border. And he just walked in.
Dads, right?
He just walked in laughing his ass off. Anyways, a couple extra questions when joining the military. What's this about?
Yeah, little explaining to do, right? I mean, I think everybody has those moments that are they're not the best version of ourselves, or maybe not the best decisions, in hindsight, right? But I also look back on my greatest failures or my greatest teachers, and it sucks when you're going through them, right? Like I'm always kicking and screaming. I'm reciting all of the personal development lines that at the time, and you're going through it, you're like, this is bullshit, but at the end of the day, the people that I see who still look at the failures as teaching moments, but they don't let them define them. Like your past doesn't have to equal your future. I've always been a big believer of that because I've seen so many people latch onto that identity in their life of, I'm bad with money. Well, you're going to be bad with money the rest of your life then. If that's the mindset and the ideology that you're going to subscribe to forever, then that's going to be your reality. And I've seen people that have come from nothing and have no resources and, no support whatsoever. And all of the reasons to have all the excuses that they want to justify maybe not being able to do something or go somewhere or achieve, what it is that they're achieving. And they don't allow those things to define them. I remember I was in a mastermind one time, and do you recall Sean Stevenson, the little guy that was in a wheelchair who had ended up passing away? One of the best personal development speakers I'd ever been around.
Oh my goodness, I think I do. Yes.
He was had such a great story, such a great outlook on life, was somebody that was a walking, talking testimony of, evolution, of believing in yourself and what is possible when you do so. And we were in a private room one time, and there was a guy that was a doctor, and he had been a doctor his whole life. And he goes, I want to do X. I forget what he wanted to do. He wanted to go off and start something new. And he said, I have always been a doctor my whole life, and I'm never going to be anything but a doctor. And he said one really simple little line that just has always stuck with me. He said, who told you you can't change? And he went on this, kind of monologue and narrative around the only people who decide that we can't change or evolve into anything that we want is us. That's it. And the rear view mirror is a lot smaller than the windshield for a reason. And if all you do is focus on the rear view mirror and you just let everything behind you define who you are, you're going to lose sight of the vision and the opportunity that's right there in front of you. And so I remember in my own hardships, my dad said that to me. He said the rearview mirror is smaller for a reason. And that was something that kind of gave me courage, because I think deep down inside, we all know and feel, and maybe not everybody, but if you're listening to this and this resonates with you, then you are this person. Like we all feel like, man, I'm meant for something a little bit more, right? Like there's got to be something a little bit more that I can pull out of myself, that I can bring to the world and make an impact and add more value. And the only person that decides that you can't do that is you. And so, when I see people who are in tough and challenging situations right now, oftentimes, based on their mindset when they're going through that. Not saying it's going to be easy, that it's going to be less hard, but the ones who are convicted in the belief and the decision that they can change and they want to make something better and different for themselves and their life and their family going forward, they're the ones who do it. And those are the ones that we always end up looking at and talking about and referencing as the inspirational, transformational stories. And I think everybody has that power within them.
It's absolutely correct. In fact, I've had Brandon Turner on, I've had Matt King, and Dees and Dries. They've all talked about having that vision and not letting the mistakes define who they are. They're learning points, and there's a lot more information in failure. Pain has a lot to teach if you're willing to.
Yeah, it does.
You're willing to pay attention, and yeah, I've heard of a variation on the windshield, the rearview mirror, where you can look in the rearview mirror, but it's not safe to stare.
Yes,
but that's true. You want to look forward. You look back to make sure, just to remind yourself of where you came from. So like, was it the gap in the game? Look back and you'll reward yourself for making it this far. Congratulations. You made it through that. And you've learned from it, and you're still moving forward. Yeah. Who said the counterpart to mentor was mentee? When did that happen? I thought it was protege, but everybody says mentee nowadays. Is that in the dictionary? I guess if enough people say it is. It's like all the different uses for, say, literally. If we all do it the wrong way, it becomes the right way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm a grammar nerd, I guess. But also the way that stuck out, it was a mentor who advertises for a mentee. I've never heard of that before.
That was the way of, I guess, back then getting free labor, right? And obviously every industry I think has, the potential for internships and fun, but it's tough, like if you go to somebody that's extremely successful, for example, a Tony Robbins, and go, will you mentor me? Right? Like it's most people who have extreme value to give often gatekeep it, and they know that their time is precious. And so, my thing, you've met David Osborne, I'm sure, right? And you've met other, really successful people from your podcast and in your, career. And as I have been really fortunate to have great mentors over the course of my life, I always say I'm a student of life and I'm always looking for my next teacher. And as I've learned from the greatest mentors, they are too. They're always looking to learn from somebody else. They have this insatiable curiosity. They have this humility to them where they know that they don't know it all. And they're just trying to learn and grow and be around people that are, wiser, stronger, smarter than them. As I have experienced and been around great mentors, I'm always looking for feedback. And so I always go, thank you, first and foremost, right? I always, try and make sure that I'm extremely grateful and appreciative to these individuals for opening up their mind, their lives, their networks, their experiences, their wallet, depending on what that, situation looks like. And I go, why did you take the time to pour into me? Because it means a lot to me. And I think based on the answers that I've gained over the years and the decades, that I've boiled it down to a couple things. And it's really one overarching equation. And it is what I call the likability formula. Almost every single person has said to me, I just like you and I want to see you succeed. And you remind me of myself and I want to pay it forward. Right. And so I think everybody has the ability, when I break down what the likability formula is, it doesn't matter who you are, where you started, where you came from, where you're going, you can be and do these things that I think will make you more likable. I heard this another way that it was put, which was, you're just a pleasure to be around. You're just a pleasure to deal with. And there's something really underrated about doing business with people, becoming friends with people, if you're a pleasure to deal with. And as I was boiling down all of the kind of feedback I've received over the years, this is what I call the likability formula, which is, if you are extremely hardworking, if you have a level of humility to yourself, if you have also a level of confidence that maybe you don't know it all, but you will put in the work, you'll find a way to figure it out. You're confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. And you consistently look at bringing value no matter what you do and where you go. I don't know about you, but when I'm around people that I see have an insane work ethic, but are also confident in who they are, but still have this level of humility to them, and they're always looking to bring value to other people. When I'm around those people, I go, man, I freaking like that person. I like that guy. I like Aaron. I want to be around people like that. I want to help people like that. I want to maybe do business with people like that. And I think every single person has the ability and the control over how much effort and output, your hard work you're willing to put in, your ability to just check your ego at the door every day and just remain humble, the confidence of like you have unique skills and abilities about you that you should be proud and confident in, and be able to consistently find ways to deliver that in some form, medium, vehicle of value to other people. And if you can do those things, you will be amazed at the doors that it opened. I have been in rooms, planes, opportunities, that conversations I had no business being in, but because quote unquote, I was likable or I was a pleasure to be around, it gave me an opportunity to walk through those doors. And when you have that chance, and you believe in yourself, you're dumb enough to believe in yourself and smart enough to walk through those doors, it's pretty amazing to see what kind of opportunities you can stumble your way into.
Absolutely true. Although hardworking, humble, not me. Confident, yes.
There we go.
Always bringing the value. Negative. I got 1 out of 4. But that's very true about people who want to coach, to mentor. But then on the flip side, you got to be an apt pupil.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be like Bill Allen. He likes to talk about being coachable, and it's not just being able to learn, listen, pay attention, and assimilate the information. It's about putting it into action.
Yeah.
And being coachable is, all right, here's the information. Here's come with questions. I'll answer them. Go put it into action and tell me how it turns out. And then come to me with your next question. And that's being coachable. That's I'm sure that factors into the likability formula.
Yeah.
So getting back to it, you're coachable. You're likable. You found a mentor, and you started learning real estate sales. You got into the flipping, and you were doing, actually really well with that, but found that there was kind of a ceiling to your abilities in that realm. When did you realize, or when did you come to the realization that you wanted to get into commercial real estate?
For me, I was in a mastermind event, and I was in a room full of people that were either flipping houses and building single family portfolios. And there was also some people in there that were in commercial real estate as well. And as we were, flipping at the end of the day is an active income stream, right? Like I have to consistently work in order to collect checks, and I'm only as good as my last flip. So I started, realizing early on that I need to find ways to maybe hold some of these properties and generate some monthly passive income that would allow me to start generating some more recurring cash flow, whether I got flips or not. So I started, doing, instead of flipping all of them, I would flip 2 and hold 1, and then flip 2 and hold 1. And so I slowly started to accumulate doors. And then when I started seeing, $200 a month on average, $250 a month on average per door, I was like, man, I'm going to need a lot of doors, because my goal was, when I started getting into these rooms, I said, you know what? I would love to work towards generating $500,000 a year in passive income. And so when I started doing the math, and I wanted to do that, mind you, over a 10-year time frame. So for me, I'm just a kind of an equation guy, a formula guy. You give me the framework, the formula, like I'll go and execute. And so when I started breaking down the numbers and backing into, man, how many properties am I going to need to buy every year to generate $500,000 a year in passive income over the next 10 years? It was a lot of doors. And I was like, man, that sounds and feels really challenging to me. There's got to be a better way. And so when I was in those rooms and I was starting to see more and more people with commercial real estate portfolios, assets that were under one roof or on one property that were generating significantly more cash flow than these properties that had longer leases, more secure and stable income streams backed by, quality national brand tenants and things along those lines, I started going, this whole commercial real estate thing sounds pretty interesting. And so I've always believed that, if you know where you want to go and when you want to get there, there's always a framework that we can back into that. Once you're clear on that, you can just get into the trenches and start executing and building. And so for me, I said $500,000 a year in passive income. And I want to do that over 10 years. And I want to do it by only buying one property a year. So when I reverse engineered the math, I just need to find one commercial real estate asset a year that when all is said and done, nets me $50,000 a year. And then as I started doing more research and being in more of these rooms and masterminds, I started realizing, man, some of these guys and gals are buying properties that are netting them $100,000, $200,000 a year. So I can figure out how to find a way to buy one property a year for the next decade that nets me $50K a year. And that's what led me into buying my first shopping center, which I think when all was said and done after that first year netted me $48,000 a year. So that led me into my next, commercial asset. And I basically kind of started playing Monopoly with commercial real estate assets and working towards, achieving that goal. And now I want to get to, $1 million a year in passive income. That was really the big eye-opening thing. There's a book by Steven Schwartzman, who is the founder of Blackstone. And it's a big, real estate hedge fund, one of the largest in the world. And it's a great leadership book and an inspirational book for anybody that, is wanting to, get some inspiration from a high level thinker. He said, it's as easy to do something big as it is easy to do something small. So you might as well go after something that completely lights you up and feels unachievable and unattainable. And to me, that really resonated. And, when you think about, you've had a near-death experience. When you think about how fragile life is, when you think about how old the earth is, I think the latest scientific update was it's 8 or 10 billion years old. Our 70 to 100 years on this, revolving little dot in the universe in the galaxy, we're so insignificant. We're so small. You might as well go do something so damn big that gets you fired up that you will not regret on your deathbed, that you wish you would have done these things. Because I remember being at a speaking event, Jeff Hoffman, the founder of Priceline, who sold his company for multiple billions of dollars. He's one of the best speakers I've ever been around, one of the most generous people I've ever been around. Yeah. And he defined his definition of success in life. And it's something that I've adopted. And I always want to make sure I'm giving him credit because it's something that resonated with me so deeply that when people say, what are you striving for? What is your definition of success? It has nothing to do with how many commas and zeros I have in my bank account. It has nothing to do with how many, trophies or accolades I've got my name attached to or how many publications have mentioned me online. He said, I want to get to my deathbed and metaphorically watch my life play out in front of me on a video. And I want to be able to watch that video and go, damn, that was a hell of a ride. That was a hell of a ride. And so for me, that's something that fires me up every day is I want to make sure that I'm leaving it all metaphorically out on the floor of life, right? Every blood, sweat, and tear. I'm taking all the shots. It doesn't mean I'm going to win. Doesn't mean I'm going to, leave every day, with points up on the board. But I know that if I keep laying it all out on the line every single day, I'll get to my deathbed and go, man, that was a hell of a fucking ride. And that's all I want to be able to say. And that's all I hope for other people to be able to say too.
It's like that Hunter S. Thompson quote about, I'm terrible with quotes and that's a long one, but not leaving this earth with a pristine body, but screaming in sideways, going, "Wow, what a ride!"
Yes.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I want to squeeze the juice out of every moment of this life. And I mentioned to you before we started recording is that I just had a great conversation with Griff from Combat Flip Flops. And he's just got this big dream of changing one life at a time by making flip flops in former combat areas.
So cool.
How difficult does that sound? But he took it one step at a time.
Yeah.
Rangers lead the way, and I said in open-toed shoes. But
and that was kind of the main reason why I decided to go into commercial real estate. I said, man, I'm here for a good time, not for a long time. And so I don't want to have any regrets going in 20 or 30 years going, man, I wish I would have gotten a commercial real estate, And so that led me into betting on myself and getting into commercial real estate, buying my first shopping center, buying my first hotel. If I didn't do those things, I would have never I would have never changed my life in the way I thought I would. I have been able to, I'll just speak to the boutique hotels. The boutique hotels were, one, financially changed my life. Two, I have so many priceless memories with my daughters and my wife going to my hotels, going to the beaches near my hotels and experiencing things that I would have never experienced if I had just stayed a house flipper. And so I heard this on a podcast the other day, and it just slapped me upside the head so hard. And I think it probably resonates with what we're talking about right here and right now. This person said, if your life was a movie and you had an audience watching your movie, what would they be screaming and yelling at the screen for you to do?
That's a good one.
And when I really thought about that, I have looked back on many points in my life that I know, and I didn't hear, but I was listening to my intuition, right? Of like, and I think that's what he's getting at is like, your intuition is going, man, I hate my job. Like, I know that there's something out there better for me. Man, I'm in a really bad relationship right now. Like, I know I need to do something different, maybe make this change. Hey, I'm doing some things to my body and, drugs and alcohol that I want to change. And I know that it's going to we all have those intuitions within ourselves in certain categories or pillars of our life that there's a book called Fierce Conversations. And one of the quotes in there says, don't listen to your gut, obey your gut. And I've started to surrender to that a lot more of going, if I'm feeling called in a direction, if I'm feeling, even though there's fear, there's doubt, I've got all the same, to work through that we all do as humans. But as you do that more and more and more in your life, which I've done that in my real estate journey and career of starting as a mentee to flipping my first house to building a flipping company, now buying rental portfolio and getting out of single families and going into commercial. And you're crazy. You don't know hotels to buy my first, second, third hotel. I have continued to trust in my gut that I have the ability to figure these things out. And as you do more and more of those things, all the fears and doubts that you have in your head, mind you, I've got so many failing forward moments, so many knee scrapes, so many, get my ass kicked. But as you go through those moments in life when fear shows up, because it doesn't ever go away, we all have it show up in our lives in certain times and places. I knew that as I started going through those experiences more, and then you get out on the other side and you take your pulse. You're still alive. You're still breathing. My wife still loves me. My kids still love me. Cool. Like all those fears and the doubts that you had, you start to desensitize yourself to the reality that unless you have a shotgun in your mouth and you got a rhinoceros in front of you and there's physical danger that is going to kill you, oftentimes a lot of the fears and doubts that we hold are just false realities that we create in our own head. And they keep so many people prisoner from reaching their full potential. So I still get the fears. I still get the doubts. I still get the anxieties all the time. I'm just better about not letting my mind talk me into my own prison. And that's something that I think has been really beneficial for helping me on my journey in my professional career.
That's absolutely incredible. Yeah, you're absolutely right too. I've heard another variation on that. What would the audience be screaming? Is imagine your hero in real life, or imagine, or it could be literally Superman. I'm talking about Christopher Reeve's Superman, not today's Superman.
Not today's Superman.
But imagine if your hero was just standing over your shoulder, watching what you're doing. What would he be or she be saying? What would you do if you knew he or she were watching? So, would that change if you knew what the audience was screaming at that moment? Would you go for it? Would you get off your butt and just do something?
Yeah.
So you know what? I want to go back a little bit before the hotels though, and your first commercial purchase. And you said you did it with 100% OPM.
Yep.
Now you had been working, and I'm assuming you're successful with the real estate and flipping, so you had money in the bank.
I didn't.
You didn't.
No, I didn't, because I had moved home from college and I was working for this guy for free for a full year. So I was actually racking up credit card debt. I was driving 40 minutes to his office every day from where I lived into kind of downtown Sacramento. And
that place ain't cheap to live.
Yeah, I had no money at the time. I was really just banking on the fact that this was going to be a stepping stone that got me into a world of opportunity in the real estate investing space, which it did. I mean, it gave me the confidence to go out and buy my very first deal. But I remember one of my first mentors, said, because my biggest objection was, I don't have any money. Like, I'm 21 years old. Who's going to sell me their house? I've never bought a house in my life, let alone do I have the money to buy a house. And my first mentor said, if you find a great deal, trust that the money will follow the deal. And so I just bought into that mindset. And I said, okay, I just got to find a great deal. And if I can find a great deal, step one, I can figure out how to get it funded, step two. And that's ultimately, I remember walking out of the cat lady's house. She signed my contract. I'm walking out of the house. I get in my car and I'm like fist pumping, discount double check-in. I'm doing all the, the celebration moves. And I remember fixing my rearview mirror to walk back to the house. And that's when an moment. I was like, I don't have any money. How the hell am I going to buy this lady's house? But again, I thought back and subscribed to that mindset of, I've always been a big believer, and I've seen it time and time again with insane success stories. It's not about the resources you have access to. It's your ability to be resourceful. And so I went back to the drawing board and I said, okay, how am I going to do this? So I found a private money or a hard money lender. They gave me 90% of the purchase price and 100% of the construction funds because I had a great deal on my hands. I got lucky in the sense that I didn't know how good of a deal I had. Looking back in hindsight, it was a home run. So not everybody's first deal is a home run, right? So I got lucky from that perspective. So really the delta of what I needed to close the gap on to close this property was I need 10% of the remaining down payment. I've already got 90% of it plus 100% of my construction funds figured out. So I just need to get 10% of the remaining funds to close the deal. And then I need to get some additional buffer funds for the mortgage payment, some of the holding costs I'm going to have while I'm flipping this house before I sell it. So I was able to go and find, I think I talked to probably 30 or 40 people because they were like, I'm not going to give you money. You've never bought a house before. You're 21 years old. And I was asking them to be in second position behind the first money. So fortunately, I was able to find that money. And again, I was just relentless in going, next no is closer to the yes, right? And I just kept pounding the pavement. I was able to get that put together. Once I closed that deal, paid off the first, paid off the second after I sold the property, and I was walking away with $106,000. As you can imagine, as a broke 21-year-old, one, I was like, hey, real estate investing is going to be my path. I'm doing this. But I think more importantly, what I took away from that was that creative finance and creative deal structuring was going to be a strategy and a vehicle that I wanted to master. And so of the hundreds of flips that I've done, I think I have maybe put my own money into 5 of those deals. Now, commercial is a little bit different. I put my money, where my mouth is in commercial. But when I was doing those deals, it was all about creative finance and creative deal structuring. And I know so many people that have this traditional mindset of, I got to go to a bank and I got to qualify and give them my credit score. And I have to have all this money, accessible and liquid to me to be able to do this deal. And what I love about real estate investing, specifically in commercial, you can do it a lot more, is you can get as creative as the minds and the parties involved in the transaction are willing to get. And so I just got really good at, one of my superpowers became, how do I creatively structure deals to make it a win for the seller, to make it a win for me, to make it a win for my investors. And that has, ultimately been one of the, tools in my toolkit that have opened up so many wealth building opportunities for me going forward.
Can you give maybe 1 or 2 examples of what you mean by these creative structures?
Yeah,
seller finance, owner carry with...
all of the above. I've done subject to properties where, one of my rental properties, somebody was, they had a mortgage. They were in default on that mortgage. They had, I think maybe, let's call it $30,000 in missed mortgage payments, plus another $30,000 in fees from, the bank and the servicing company for attorneys and all that kind of stuff. I found this family came to me. I knew they had a little bit of equity left in the property, that they were going to probably break even. They came to me at the last minute. So their property was going to sale. I was able to get the sale postponed. And then I basically said, okay, I'm going to buy your property. You're going to transfer the deed over to me. And I'm going to purchase your property subject to the existing mortgage staying in place. I'll bring all of your arrears current. So the $60,000, the $30,000 that you owe to the bank, plus all the fees, I'm going to wipe that out. And we're going to leave your mortgage in place. And I'm going to make the payments on behalf of you. And I'm going to help build your credit back up. They did a lease back, so they got to stay in their home instead of getting foreclosed on. And the difference between their mortgage payment and the rental payment that I agreed to with them, I was cash flowing a couple $100 a month. But now that house has about $350,000 in equity over the next 8 years that I've held it. So that was a creative finance deal that I was able to get in with very little money, and I didn't have to go and get a mortgage on. It was already in place. I'm closing on a mobile home park tomorrow, and the mobile home park is being 100% financed. I'm coming out of pocket the appraisal fee and my closing costs, which and some of the prepaid insurance, which is about, let's call it $15,000 out of pocket. And I'm buying a mobile home park that I got a lender to give me 75% of the purchase price on, a local community bank there. And I convinced the seller, because they're going to get 75% of their money now, I convinced the seller to spread out their taxable income and burden, and they're carrying back the remaining 25% in second position behind the bank. And I'm going to pay them out over the course of the next 3 years. So that deal, I'm coming into it, and it appraised, I think I got it under market. It appraised at, and it's a value add mobile home park. It appraised as is with, I'm walking in to about $300,000 in equity on that deal for $15,000 out of pocket. And with the value add and what we're going to do to the park, it's going to significantly increase the value over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. and then I'll essentially burr it. I'll refinance the
Mm-hmm.
first out. I'll get the seller their money out of it, and I'll essentially have gotten into that deal with only $15,000.
That's awesome.
I got lots of examples and stories for you because I've done it in so many different situations. And my first shopping center was a creative finance deal. It's definitely really important to understand, one, how to communicate these things, two, to understand if your strategy is actually suitable to what the parties are trying to achieve. You don't want to force something onto somebody that isn't the right fit for them, right? And so, I'm all about making sure that just because it works for you doesn't mean it works for everybody. And so you need to make sure that you're operating with integrity, ethically, because that your reputation is important. And if you plan on being an investor for a long time, then you don't want to force a bad deal onto somebody. You want it to be a true win-win, right? And so that's something that I always, like to make sure I communicate to people that are thinking about creative finance. Is just because you're winning doesn't mean everybody's winning. And if you really want longevity in this career, you want to be able to sleep well at night, then you need to make sure that you do things right. But definitely being able to, properly structure deals to make sure you're creating a win-win. And most importantly, that you are just underwriting and analyzing these things properly to make sure that your exit strategy and what is going to make that win come to life for people over time is plausible and realistic. Those are definitely some of the things that you just want to make sure you're considering when you're going after creative structures.
When it comes to that, it sounds like you're the underwriting. It sounds like you're in a few different real estate sectors. Single family, mobile home parks, boutique hotels, and retail spaces. And when you're underwriting, a lot of people argue that you should pick one lane. I am the duplex guy, up and down, or side by side, not up and down, only the side by side duplexes. That's all I do all day, every day. Because then I know exactly what they're supposed to look like, what the underwriting's supposed to be. When it comes to having this, the variety of types of retail spaces, commercial spaces, residential. Does that pose a problem when you're underwriting, knowing what you're looking for and how to know if the deal is right, or seeing those gotcha type of things?
Yeah. I think I'm personally, I understand there are certain people, certain groups that are, hey, this is my lane and this is what I specialize in. And I don't do any deals outside of multifamily. I don't do any deals outside of storage units. And that works for a lot of people. And I also know other people that are like me. We're asset agnostic and we're market agnostic. We're more opportunistic, where we believe based on how we structure deals, we can mitigate risk, and through quality underwriting, operating teams, and action, that we can capture and execute on getting returns and upside. And so again, I always say I'm not the brightest, crayon in the box. I'm not the sharpest, fastest, or strongest. So I just make sure that I surround myself with the people who are. So when I'm underwriting deals, right, instead of the rose-colored lenses and the blue sky scenarios of everything's going to go great and here's how we're going to make this return, I stress test every deal. We mitigate as many of the risks. We plan for the worst. We execute and hope for the best. And those are great ways that you can set yourself up for success, right? And I also love to get feedback from people that are smarter than me and have done these things. So getting second, third, fourth sets of eyes and opinions and poking holes in your deals. And what if this happens is a great way to buffer out some of the blind spots that people often have. And just making sure that you're aligning yourself with the right team members. Because it's one thing to make a pro forma and a model look really cute and sexy and juicy on a spreadsheet. It's a whole different thing when you have to execute and operate in a capacity that brings that spreadsheet to life in the real world. And that's where I think there's generally a disconnect with people. I'm an owner and an operator. I don't just own and then pass it off to other people. We execute in-house and operate all of our own assets. So that's something that, has given me a little bit of a competitive and a unique advantage. And is just something to keep in mind if and when you're raising capital and you're analyzing and underwriting deals that may be out of your lane of expertise.
That seems like another challenge right there. If you're operating the various types of properties, do you, at any point in the chain, hire specific property managers, or you do?
Yeah. I would say we self in-house manage and operate probably 60-70% of my portfolio. And then the other 30-ish% has been with local operators that have come highly referred, and that, we felt it made sense to, hand that operating and management responsibility off to them.
So more or less in-house asset management with some property management and some outsourced property management.
You got it. Yep.
Okay. But you did tell me, and you've said that your primary focus, I guess, or major focus are boutique hotels, or at least you really love boutique hotels. Can you tell me how'd you get into that? Why boutique hotels?
I just honestly stumbled into it accidentally through my social media. I had an Instagram follower reach out to me. Was a pastor. They ended up having someone in their church who bought a boutique hotel that it was going into foreclosure up in Lake Tahoe, and it was struggling. Do you buy hotels? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. Never bought a hotel in my life. And, I always tell people I love every deal depending on what the price is. And so this price got me engaged and intrigued. And I'm like, oh man, this is a rundown boutique motel. I'm going to be able to find a way I'm a house flipper, right? I find a way to make things look pretty. And so I went in there very ignorant to the fact that, hospitality assets, hotels, there's nothing passive about them. We'll just start there. They are living, breathing organisms that have people, right? Customers and staff in them. Therefore, you're actually buying an operating business that happens to function out of a real estate asset. So I learned that the hard way, and I bought my first boutique hotel up in Lake Tahoe, got my ass kicked, learned a lot of lessons, thought I was going to go bankrupt during COVID. And it ended up, being the complete opposite of that. Tahoe was booming during COVID, post-COVID. People weren't taking international trips and, flying all around the world. They were driving to the closest, most beautiful destination, and outdoor hospitality obviously became a very big draw during that time. And, that led me to buying my third hotel. But it was very challenging, in a lot of ways because of the reasons that I talked about. A lot of moving pieces. The assets never sleep unless you're buying big hotels with a lot of scale, a lot of economies of scale, a lot of staff, a lot of support. You're heavily integrated into that model, right? And so it was very financially lucrative for me, but it was also probably the most stressful time of my life. And I ended up packaging up 3 of those hotels in Tahoe, sold those off, and, still playing in different hospitality assets, but just looking at it through a different lens now, different capacity from, the learning lessons I gained through owning and operating those 3 hotels.
Tahoe. Around the COVID era, and you said that was a motel?
Yeah. So it was, kind of your door facing the outside roadside lodge. So I ended up buying 2 in South Lake Tahoe and then 1 in North Lake Tahoe, both of varying size, around 30 keys. But, if you're not buying at scale, and depending on what your top line revenue is of those assets, it makes it really hard to, pay salaried managers in your properties to completely keep it passive for you, right? So you really have to have, if you want it to be passive, then you just have to buy an asset that has the level of revenue that can support a leadership team and keep you somewhat removed and in the owner's box of that asset. But I can't tell you how many people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy a hotel, or, they buy their first Airbnb and they don't realize you got guests coming and going all the time. There's, a very heavy management intensive responsibilities that if it doesn't align with your lifestyle, it doesn't align with your, capacity to service those assets, it can be very stressful and oftentimes lead to, losing money.
Well, the reason I asked about Tahoe and the boutique motels is that I've got a friend, a military friend, who got to start flipping and then going into short-term rentals, which is a business, but at least it's one guest at a time, more or less. But he got into boutique hotels, and one of his earlier projects was in Tahoe. Blake Daly.
Yeah. Blake's he's doing his thing out in what is it? They're in Tennessee right now. I know him and Dave Perret, bought that hotel out in Tennessee together, and he bought 2 small boutique hotels, actually not far from my other 2 hotels out in or the 2 that I had in South Lake. He had his 2 in South Lake as well. And Blake's a great dude, man.
Yeah. That one in Townsend, they had a military to millionaire in-person meetup in February. I was the keynote. So, I got to more or less, quote unquote, see that was a big property, boutique hotel, I think 130 units. So,
yeah. Dave Perret is one of my coaching clients that I work with one-on-one. He's great. He's a
terrific guy. And he's doing a lot of great work. So, wow, congratulations. That's a testament to your coaching.
Yeah, we got, I've got some, I work with, anywhere from 10 to 12, real estate investors per year to help them kind of scale their commercial real estate portfolio.
That's terrific. So what are you focusing on now? You got any deals in the pipeline? Any projects you're working on? What's got you excited right now?
Yeah, I'm working through the redevelopment of about a 75,000 square foot shopping center that I bought in Oklahoma last year. Working through finalizing a build out and plans for an anchor tenant with TJ Maxx. Getting close to finalizing a co-anchor to go into the plaza with them. So that's a fun, larger project. That little mobile home park is going to be a fun one. And then I've got a couple other deals that I'm working on that, are at different spots of the negotiating. One thing that I am interested in and spending more time on and starting to kind of move the needle forward on, which will be a little bit of a slower burn, but I'm excited about it. I do think it's the future of real estate and real estate investing. Is I'm looking at tokenizing one of my commercial real estate properties and offering fractional ownership through tokenization on the blockchain for real estate investors that want to have fractional ownership and liquidity and sharing the benefits of owning commercial real estate assets without necessarily going through the traditional channels of being able to do so.
That's interesting because the blockchain, crypto, it reached kind of a fever pitch right around 2021 also. And I guess as the market started to turn, kind of quieted down a bit.
It did. There was it quieted down in a big way.
There was a lot of talk about these blockchain contracts.
Yeah, smart contracts.
That sound way above my head, but it sound like the future.
Yeah, I think it's still really, really early. There still needs to be a lot more retail adoption. 2, there's a lot of, regulation, SEC legislation that is still very unclear that it's going to need to get sorted through. It's going to happen at some point. There are so many reasons why it should and will happen, being that there are so many inefficiencies in how real estate transactions and real estate capital raising and investing are done today. but it's still very early. That being said, there are a lot of crypto investors out there who have amassed a lot of wealth in crypto. They do not want to liquidate and create taxable events for themselves to get back into a fiat of USD to be able to invest in these assets. And therefore, I think there is and already are some vehicles and opportunities out there for people that are going, hey, I would love to take some of my crypto and own a real world tangible asset that has cash flow benefits, tax benefits, equity growth and upside to be had without me having to convert over to USD. And so we've already seen that, with certain platforms pop up and different, people on a very small scale, tokenize commercial real estate assets. But the concept's been validated. So it's something that I'm very interested in and can continue to play around. I want to be an early adopter in that space. And so that's something that I'm working on and kind of having a little bit of fun with behind the scenes right now.
The technology is certainly wide open for somebody who's innovative
Agreed.
and industrious. But I tell you what, we're starting to get a little long on time. I really appreciated this conversation. You brought a ton of value. I think it's about that time to start heading into the final segment, the countdown to impact. And if you don't mind, it'll be a 3, 2, 1. 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person who have all made an impact in your life.
3 books: John Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and I'm not going to say the cliched, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or some of the normal staples, which those have been extremely impactful. I would say that one of the recent ones was 10x is easier than 2x. Is one that has me, I think, meeting me where I'm at right now and looking to think bigger and go bigger. 2 quotes: obviously, be dumb enough to believe in yourself and smart enough to take action on your goals is something that I live by every single day. I would say it's as easy to do something big as it is easy to do something small, and using that as a place of encouragement for people to just go and play bigger, and know that it's not something that I don't know anybody that's gone and tried something bigger that's regretted it and been like, man, I wish I would have just stayed small. I wish I would have just stayed, living my little simple life. Right. So I love those 2. And the 2 people that I am eternally grateful for that have made the greatest impact on my life. I've had so many good mentors. I've had a lot of great teachers, a lot of paid coaches. I know not many people can say this, and I feel extremely grateful when I do have the opportunity to say it, is, my mom and my dad. Both my parents divorced when I was young. They didn't, work out as a couple, but they co-parented the shit out of me, and they did a great job. And my mom works full time with me. I retired her out of corporate America and got her working in my business for the last 9 years. My dad gets to work with me as well. So those are 2 people that I would consider my heroes and have really made a significant impact on who I am as a man and now in business too.
That's terrific. And my mom is our property manager in Ohio. So
love it.
Yeah. I love having family in the business.
Yeah.
It'll be hard to fire her if I ever needed to. But thank goodness she does a great job.
Yeah.
All right. Last 2 questions. One is, what's your idea of making an impact? How do you want to make an impact in this world?
I think my idea of making an impact in this world is gifting somebody a belief in themselves that they don't have, and if that becomes a little bit of a catalyst that encourages them to just take one little step that they wouldn't have initially taken, it's unbelievable when something gets in motion, that initially wasn't there, what people find is possible for themselves. That's why I've done the podcast for 10 years. That's why I go to masterminds. That's why I do coaching. It is truly because I, 1, selfishly want to learn and grow myself, but 2, just by being in proximity to people and gifting them a belief in themselves that often many of my mentors have gifted me, and it's transformed my life. that's one little ripple effect I know I can have in the world and am in control of. And I try and take advantage of that as much as I can.
Awesome. Last question then. If somebody wanted to connect and find out more and continue finding more about you, where would they go?
They can go to obviously millionairemindcast.com and, listen to the podcast and check out more there. We've got the episodes on all platforms, on YouTube, or on social media at official Matty A, Mattya. That's my handle on all platforms. And I love connecting with anybody that's heard me on a show.
Awesome. Matt, thank you so much for your time today and sharing incredible story.
Thanks for having me on, Aaron.
I really do want a boutique hotel now. Or just a triple net TJ Maxx space.
Hey, they're there for the taking, brother.
Folks, disruptors, thank you for tuning in and sharing your time. I hope you got some value out of it. If you did, please give us 5 stars, give that thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode. Copy the link and send it in a text or something to somebody else. And please follow the link right now. Open it up. The link's in the notes to go find out more about Matt and subscribe to his show, Millionaire Mindcast. Until next time, make an impact.